Hello folks, and welcome to the weekend warm-up with him and me.
You're back.
I know, I am. I'm really here. How are you, mate?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. We must apologise in advance for the newfangled Austria spec masks which we have to wear this weekend. They are good in two regards, that they will stop us from catching the COVIDs again, and also they will stop me from shoveling 20 kilos of schnitzel into my mouth. So win-win. 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 It's great to be back here in the scene of our very first weekend warm-up 12 months ago. Can you believe it's been a year?
No, then we've done more than 20 races since
24 races in the intervening period.
It's crazy how quickly time's gone by, and how deep we are actually into this season already.
I know. And you had two great races just gone by, of course, Baku and France. France, the first part of this triple header, 2 races here in Austria. It's going to be a great couple of races here.
Yeah, I think what the teams have learned after we've done 2 Austrias last year is how to do this as efficiently as possible. Yeah. I think people are really happy to be here. The weather's great, even though it's not looking so great for the rest of the weekend. People are pretty pleased to be here. Should we start talking about the people that we've been talking to today, Lawrence? Let's do that. Should we start with these guys?
We'll start with these guys because we're down here for a reason. And of course, he's in the headlines massively at the moment, Mr. George Russell, who finished 12th in France, ahead of 5 cars that you wouldn't expect him to finish ahead of.
No.
And as he said to me earlier today, it's bloody typical, isn't it? The one day that I have my best race in Formula 1, and it's the 10th time in Formula 1 history that there are no DNFs.
Massively unlucky, but I think you can take a lot of heart from the fact that he performed so strongly across that weekend. Yeah. Passing AlphaTauri at death, on track, on pure performance. I think that he's got to take so much confidence coming into these 2 races. Super short track here, some unpredictable weather. This is the kind of weekend where they can get an opportunity.
Well, Latifi said, didn't he, that the short track should suit them?
Yeah, exactly. It's just over a minute, I think, round here. So that means the field's not going to be spread by very much. A small mistake here, a small mistake there, and you could see Williams comfortably, or 2 comfortably into Q2, maybe even challenging Q3.
Now, we did come here to talk about George because, of course, the news about George is that there is no news yet about George and his future. Will it be here? Will it be at Mercedes? It's got everyone talking. Yes, I think we've been talking about this for a long time now, and I think we might be talking for a little bit longer as well, because at the moment it's clear he wants to be at Mercedes. And the question is, do Mercedes want him to replace Valtteri Bottas? And at this moment in time, I'm not sure. Oh, well, let's hear from George himself. Does he think he's Mercedes bound? And how does he stop all of this chat from the likes of us from affecting his weekends and his racing?
You know, I'm confident that I will still be here in Formula 1 next year, which in itself is not a relief, but, you know, there's comfort in knowing that I will be here regardless. But I think it's exciting that I'm not too sure what my future holds, and I can just go into every single race enjoying it, doing my best. I mean, Formula 1's not easy. There's always going to be pressure, there's always going to be difficult questions, and I think if you want to be fighting for world championships, you know, having questions about contracts are going to be the easiest questions you'll face. And you know, I guess I'm used to the pressure from the past, and just excited for what's to come, really.
I'm really glad they put us in front of this hot extractor fan.
Because it hasn't been hot enough today, has it?
34 degrees, mate. But the weather is going to break, apparently, over the weekend. As you said, it looks like it might rain throughout the weekend. Yeah,
we had some hail last night.
Didn't we? Size of golf
balls.
Really
chunky bits of hailstones. So I think a storm could just fly in. That's what the weather's forecasting in the early days. So that really could mix things up.
Absolutely. Haas. To look back on the French Grand Prix for them. Of course, Mick made it through to Q2.
Yeah, I felt bad for him. Makes it into Q2. Can't actually compete because of the accident that he had. But I think he can take a bunch of confidence from that, because really this car shouldn't be in Q2. No. So I think the very fact that he managed to haul it in there in what was only his 6th Grand Prix as a Formula 1 driver is a huge achievement.
Now, you may have seen some pictures of Mick inviting Seb over to come and look at the car after the race. It's because he'd already told Seb that he wasn't happy with his position in the car. And so Seb told him, well, if you don't like your seat, just break it and tell him to make you a new one. I was talking to Mick earlier today and I said, so what's that all about? You know, is it that your seat's wrong? And he said, no, I'm just wonky. Yeah. Like Mick himself is a bit. Now we all, as human beings, are not symmetrical, but Mick's a bit lopsided, and so he's never been comfortable in any of his junior Formula cars. Nothing. He's always been a little bit offset, and the team's tried to shore him up and right him in the car to make him be straight on. But I think they might have done it too much or not quite enough, and so he's feeling really awkward because it's not the seat that's wonky, it's Mick that's wonky.
But I thought it was really nice touch that he asked Sebastian, who's sort of his mentor.
Yeah, although Seb will tell you he's not. He doesn't like the label.
No, but the reality is
he's
his mentor. And I think it was quite nice that he brought him over to have a look and just asked for his advice, because he's a rookie. Like, he just doesn't know the answers to some of these questions.
But I love that Seb's advice was just break it and then make you a new one.
I mean, it's still advice, isn't it?
It's great. So, you chatted to the two Alpha boys today, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a difficult weekend for them in France, like many people. They didn't understand what was going on with the tyres. They were very surprised on Sunday afternoon. They haven't really found a lot in the days between France and Austria, so they're a little bit concerned, I guess, on how this weekend's going to unfold. That said, before we went to France, they were in the points for 2 successive races.
Yes.
And I think that, with a close field, and I think we're going to talk about this a lot, the lap time's so close, that if they can get everything right, and Antonio's been pretty good in qualifying of late, there's no reason why they can't have a strong weekend, if they just get everything perfect.
It's the fine margins, isn't it? Really fine. And that's what can make or break the weekend for these guys.
Yeah, and I think that's why qualifying here is going to be so exciting, especially if the weather starts to play its part as well, because even the smallest mistake could be the difference between you being in the top 10 and knocked out in Q1.
And Kimi himself admitted he's got to get his qualifying better. Talking about getting weekends better, down here at AlphaTauri, Yuki Tsunoda, great weekend in Baku, horrible weekend in France.
Yes, I mean, for Yuki, I feel like he's having one weekend where he feels like he's really making progress, then gets hauled back down, and what we're seeing is the challenge of being a Formula One driver, especially for someone as young as him. It's easy to forget that he's only had a couple of seasons of international motorsport experience. We've got to keep remembering the fact that he's still very young, and we've got to experience. Well, got put off by Carlos come in and say hello.
That's what I was just saying.
Nice touch, isn't it?
That's lovely. I was chatting to Yuki earlier, and he said the biggest thing for him is he's getting ahead of himself too quickly. He has a good weekend, then he's on the front foot, and he's like, I've got to do it all, and so he goes out too hard, too fast, and he's out, and he's off, and he's binned it, and he just says he's got to keep his together and just relax, and that's his problem. Is he needs consistency, but he did also tell me that. At 8 p.m, so two hours and a quarter from where we are right now, he's got a call with Helmut, and he hasn't spoken to Helmut since Baku, and he says he's not looking forward to it. That should be
fun, shouldn't it? That should be fun.
He said, I'm really not looking forward to it. Gasly, though, I mean, has been on just a run this year, as he was last year. Podium in Baku, great drive last time out. You spoke to him, let's hear from him.
Really happy overall about our performance. I think it's the best start in Formula One I've had, and there are a lot of things which explain it. I think the work, the fact that we know each other very well, we know what to expect, what we need from each other, and we'll try to do even better. There are certain areas which we can improve, and we need to focus on these little details, because championship is very tight. We have our battle in the team championship. I have also mine in the driver championship, and it's important that we keep that good momentum to grab every point we can.
They had an up and down weekend in France as well. Pretty good for Fernando, not so good for Esteban.
Yeah, on Friday it was one of those days like we've seen a few times this weekend where they felt pretty good about it. 2 cars in the top 6, and unusual really, but Esteban's weekend kind of went downwards, whereas Fernando kind of built performance through the weekend, particularly in qualifying. He seemed to be making some gains. Esteban didn't really find any answers between last week in France and Austria. It's obviously only a few days, but he ran well here, particularly in qualifying, top 5 in the wet, and we have got wet weather.
Hoping for it? Does he think he wants wet or not?
So I asked him if he was going to do a rain dance.
Right.
And he said, nah, I don't need a rain dance. We can compete in the dry conditions. But you know what? I think secretly he wouldn't mind a bit.
No, absolutely. And one guy who also would love a bit of the wet is Lance Stroll, who was on pole, of course, in Turkey in those horrible conditions. Always seems to find the grip in those difficult conditions. Loves it here. What was it called last? Racing Point last year went really well here. And they're hoping for a good weekend. Lance is feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I think Lance is building performance, and it probably isn't very clear to see on paper. Only got a point, you could say, in the last race, but I think what he did in that race was extract more performance out of the car than he's been able to. And I think that's going to build him confidence in the upcoming races. Whether or not he can deliver it here, I don't know, because we haven't consistently seen both of them performing at the same circuit.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one for them. Lance, I think, starting from where he did and getting up to where he did, I asked if that was just about the level of the car. And actually, because he finished around where Seb was, is that the balance of where the car should be? And he said, yeah, look, if I started from higher up, I might have been able to have a go and see if I could finish any higher, but realistically, the fact that he and Seb were where they were at the end, and Lance started here and Seb started here, perhaps it's just that's where the level of the car is.
Yeah, it's tricky for these guys, right? Because they want to be a World Championship winning team, and the gains they make this year probably aren't going to affect that.
And with that in mind, I should speak into the microphone and point at you. They have, of course, made changes to the technical departments.
Yes.
From today. Andrew Green will move from the role of technical director to chief technical officer. There is no technical director at the moment. That is a role still to be filled.
Yeah, they tried to make a clearer structure where Andrew Green can take a more strategic approach to things. For so many years, he's been the heart of the technical department, and it's his ideas that are appearing on the car. Now he can move up a bit, look a bit more long term, and they've created a performance director, an engineering director, and a technical director role.
And they've yoinked chief designer from Alfa Romeo.
Oh yes, Luca Barretto, indeed.
Tom McCulloch will be performance director.
So it's great that he's got promoted, because he's been at this team for such a long time.
He's so
highly
great.
respected as well, isn't he?
He's such a quiet, unassuming guy. He's so good, and yeah, really happy for him. But the interesting question of who will the technical director be? Will they poach somebody from another team? It's going to be a real sign of intent from them. Sebastian Vettel getting comfortable in the car finally. 3 races in a row, and the point said it's as much to do with the team understanding the car as it is him being comfortable in the car. But when we talk about drivers being comfortable with their cars, I talked to Daniel Ricciardo today, and Daniel, who for so much of this year has been, you know, when we talk to him, he's been kind of quite closed off, and still him jokey, laughy Daniel, but not really Daniel. And he was just like, you know, into the pen today, like proper Daniel. Something, I think, clicked in France, and he said from the outset that, you know, those big long expanses of runoff would allow him to take those medium to high speed corners and not worry about losing the car. He could actually, because it's been on a knife edge for him, he could put it where he wanted it and not have to worry about losing it. He's done that. He's taken the lessons from it, which he hopes to put into effect here. And what he learns this weekend will be directly transferable to next weekend, back on this track again. This is a triple header that's vitally important for Daniel, vitally for his understanding of this car.
That's exactly what he wanted. 3 races in a row where he can build a rhythm, build some momentum. I think some of this improvement resided way back in Baku, actually, before he had that qualifying incident.
Yeah.
I think before that, he'd find a little bit of a breakthrough, then the weekend was ruined because of the qualifying issue. But France, you're right. There was something in the car where he had confidence, and we talked about for the whole time at Renault, didn't have confidence, for example, on the brakes.
Yes.
And until he found that confidence, he couldn't get the most out of the car. I think there's something in this car now he's managed to unlock. Even Lando said it's a difficult one to drive compared to last year. He's found that, and you're right, that bounces back, I think. And he was able to make progress through a Grand Prix in France in a way that he just hasn't been able to do that yet.
He told me earlier today that he had to essentially put his personality to this. He didn't want to say it, but it's almost like he had to kind of drop his ego and admit to himself it wasn't going to be as easy as he thought it was going to be. Put that to the side and do the job, and now he can pick that back up again and roll with that confidence, roll with that swagger that Daniel has. And, you know, they call Paul Ricard is the high-tech test track, and he's used it as that. He's used it for knowledge, for understanding, and to put the car on that real sketchy edge where he didn't like it to be, and now he knows where he can hold it and where he can't, and I think that's going to be massive for him.
And I think what's also massive is that he's now feeling like he's on par with Lando. I imagine that would have really hurt his confidence this year. That, you know, fair play to Lando. What he's done this year has been phenomenal. He's on a run of, I think, 12 races in the points, delivering the goods. And that's really had to make Daniel step up a little bit quicker.
And it was a run, of course, which Lando began at this circuit 12 months ago with a run to his first ever podium. Lawrence chatted to him earlier about that and about the 12 months, the incredible 12 months that he's had since.
What's it feel like to return to the scene of your first podium, and what 12 months or so since it's, you know, things have changed a lot?
They have done. I've scored 2 more podiums since then. No, it's nice. It's beautiful weather, which is probably most important. But it might rain, so that's also cool. Yeah, I guess knowing I've done well here in the past, knowing we've done well here as a team in the past, is gives us some confidence coming back into this weekend. And yeah, hopefully we can have another good weekend. If I could replicate something like last year, race 1, that would be lovely. But yeah, it's not definite. There's a lot of hard work, a lot of tough competitors out there. So we'll see what we can do to beat them.
How do you think it is looking this weekend? I know it's a short track, so everyone's pretty close anyway. But
yeah, I think that's probably going to be it could be one of the toughest weekends of the year, more because everyone's closer than ever. You know, like Williams and Haas have not been miles away in the last few qualies, and if you not put the lap together, they can be there as well. So, I mean, I'm hoping we're not racing against them. I'm hoping, you know, I've got confidence we can be further up, but everyone's quite close, and there's good opportunities to do well. But very easily, if you don't put it together, you can be definitely a bit further back, especially here when there's only 5 or 6 proper corners on the track. So yeah, we'll see. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's also going to be tough.
He's 4th. Number 4 is 4th in the World Championship. Can you believe it?
No, and to be honest, I don't think he can really. That he's managed to carry this performance through so many Grand Prix. That consistency that he's showing this year, for the level of experience that he's got, is frankly incredible.
I can believe it. He's driving great. He's driving so well. It's just fantastic. And of course, what's key at the moment with the performance, and Daniel getting up there as well for that performance curve for McLaren, is their fight with Ferrari. Because we've seen Ferrari flatter to deceive over the year, quick in qualifying, not quite as quick in the race, but never has it been as marked as it was in France.
No, huge weekend in this battle for P3, in that McLaren obviously managed to get cars in P5 and P6, and these guys, having started, looked like they'd had a decent car in qualifying, were nowhere in the Grand Prix.
I mean, literally nowhere. It was a horrible race for them. And you spoke to Carlos, I spoke to Charles, and neither one of them has an answer.
No, Carlos was gutted because he's had 2 strong qualifyings this year, in Portugal and in France, and both of those times, first it was the strategy, this time the tyres, kind of robbed him of all the hard work that he'd put in on Saturday. I think both of those guys are accepting that this is not a short-term fix. No. But it's going to hurt them at specific circuits, and it doesn't mean that we're going to see this kind of form follow through for the rest of the year.
Well, and the other problem is they don't know which circuits those circuits are going to be at the moment. They're still doing the investigation. They don't yet have a handle on why it's happening, where it's going to happen, when it's going to happen. All of the questions that you would normally ask, they don't have an answer. They've run the research. They've been doing everything they can over these 4 days since we were in France, since you were in France, I should say. And they're hitting blanks. But as you said, Mattia Binotto, I think, has said this isn't a short-term solution. It's medium, long-term. It's going to be a hardware change that we need to put into effect. We may just have to put up with it for the year until the new cars come along in 22.
And the difficulty for them is they can't get distracted by this year.
No.
Because next year is the year that they can make a big step. I know we've said that several times over the years, but they just can't get distracted.
That's who I want to talk to. I want to talk to Laurent. There isn't anybody from Ferrari in the press conference tomorrow, which is a real shame, because I'd love to know what they think. I'd love to know what Laurent thinks is going on right now. It's anyway, he's just come out of Red Bull, so they're clearly chatting about something. Let's talk about Red Bull. Let's talk about Checo, 3rd in the World Championship right now. He is super happy, super confident, and he's only 30 odd points behind Lewis Hamilton.
Incredible, really, isn't it? And if you'd probably said that to Checo 2 races ago, before Baku,
bit your hand off,
whether he would have definitely done that. He said right at the start of the season, give me 5 races, give me 6 races, and then I've got on top of the car.
He said 5, didn't he? And then he won on his 6th.
Incredible, isn't it?
Pretty perfect.
And then followed that up with a podium and a strong Grand Prix, because in that race, he did exactly what the team needed him. Got in the Mercedes pit window, caused them all sorts of problems.
Perfect, wasn't it?
Got his podium, beat Bottas. It was exactly what they wanted.
And this is it. And this is what they've needed all along, is the driver who not only can deliver, take victories, but will be there to be the spoiler, to ruin Mercedes' strategic options, to play exactly that role. But I spoke to him earlier today, and he said, look, I am in the hunt for the championship as well. One bad race weekend for Lewis, Checo takes the win, he's 5-6 points off the back of him. Like, he's there, he's properly there and in it, and in a car in which he finally feels, he said, not 100%,
yes,
but he's there with it, and to that extent that he is not having to be conscious and in the moment thinking about the car. He can be thinking about the strategy, he can be thinking about everything else that he needs to, because he's so there with it.
And I think that's what's quite exciting for Checo right now, is that there is more to come.
Yeah.
And if there's more to come, what more could he achieve? Maybe a title fight still is a possibility.
Talking about more to achieve, more to come, Max Verstappen, I had a long chat with him earlier this afternoon. I said, have we seen the best from you yet? He said, no, not at least until my 30s. Like, he knows there is a long path until he's at his best, but he says he feels ready, he's content. He is absolutely in the moment and ready to take this championship fight to Lewis Hamilton. Let's hear from Max Verstappen, moving in to this Austrian Grand Prix, a track he knows and loves, a race which he's won.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really like to think about payback. I mean, you know, these things happen. You learn from it, but you cannot change these events. So I just wanted to have, of course, the best possible result. And of course, it's always difficult going into that weekend to know exactly where you're going to be. But immediately, you know, we showed good pace. The car was in a good window, and then of course to win the race like that made it really nice. I mean, I didn't expect that before going into that weekend. So yeah, of course, super pleased with that.
I don't think many people did. I think Christian said going into the weekend, if we can beat Mercedes here, we can beat them anywhere. Do you agree with that sentiment, having now beaten Mercedes in France?
I mean, we did, but you can clearly see during the race, you know, the pressure was always on. We are very closely matched, and it's all about little details which I think are going to make the difference.
This is a track that you've always gone well at. It's a track that Red Bull usually go well at. Do you enter this weekend as favourites, or really do we come into every weekend with it so close?
I find it always really difficult to judge because, like I just said before, it's all about tiny details. So that is also about setup work, you know, preparing your car for qualifying. So time will tell exactly where we'll end up.
So from the championship leader to the reigning champions, and let's go full circle from the start of the show and the George Russell chat to the George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, Lewis Hamilton chat, contract renegotiation time. It's an interesting one. It's a fascinating one.
Yeah, I would say the Mercedes legal team and those who prepare the contracts are pretty busy at the moment, because they've not got obviously one but two contracts to sort out.
Where do you see that? We'll talk about Lewis in a minute, because we're going to hear from him in a moment. Valtteri, George, where do you see this thing shaping up?
I suppose the thing is, Toto wants to give Valtteri as much time as possible to prove that he deserves to keep that seat.
How many years has he had?
Well, he's already said he wants to give him the whole season. So
but if he doesn't know by now, I'm sorry, I'm not jumping in. I am a little bit. But if he doesn't, honestly, if he doesn't know by now, I find that odd. I find that odd to say he needs more time. But he's been there for years. He knows every detail of the guy.
But it might also be that he's not quite sure on George. So maybe he just needs time across both of them and weighing up the pros and cons.
So that's where the interest level lies for me. I find it fascinating that Mercedes have only got two options. Valtteri or George. Who else are they going to slide in there? If it's the most successful team of the turbo hybrid era. Are you telling me they've got one option?
No, but I think they've made the decision that it's a straight fight between the two of them.
I just find that incredible, because you've got Red Bull, you've got Helmut Marko in the week saying they need to put George in the car. Why would Helmut want George in the car if he genuinely believes George is better? I don't think Red Bull think George is better, and that's why they're trying to apply pressure to Mercedes to put him in.
But I think Mercedes do rate George. They've also had an experience one weekend in Bahrain with him. They know how he works. They know what he could do. He could have won that Grand Prix.
He could, but he hasn't been able to take a point since, and has taken
Mercedes. Williams.
Yeah, but he's had chances and he's fluffed them. Is he the right choice? Is he the right option?
Well, I suppose it goes back to what we were saying right at the start. Maybe they just don't know yet. The other thing is, today Lewis Hamilton was asked about his future, but you know, in the context of his teammate. And he kind of hinted that, you know, he wanted Valtteri to stay, as if, you know, nothing's wrong, so why change it?
Do we think George might prove to be too much of a disruptive influence, like a Nico Rosberg, somebody who is not cocksure, but certainly very certain of their own abilities, the way that he sort of carries himself, the way that, you know, we think back to sort of Imola and his immediate reactions to all of that. He's a very confident, he's used to winning championships. He's used to getting his way. He's not going to turn up to Mercedes and play the dutiful number two. No,
I guess Mercedes have to decide whether they're equipped or even want to deal with a potential situation that they had with Lewis and Nico again. And you know, at the moment, everything works quite nicely. It's quite harmonious between Lewis and Valtteri. And do they want to rip that all up? And I guess it also depends on whether they believe that Lewis can win the title for them still in the format and the way that both of the drivers are operating at the moment. If they don't, then perhaps they do want to start changing things up.
It's so interesting, isn't it? It's really, really fascinating. We are expecting Lewis's deal to be done relatively simply. I asked him earlier today if we'd see him here next year. He said yes. You spoke to him, I know, and he said,
well, the talks are quite talks have already started. They're quite light-hearted. I think that probably the vibe between him and Toto has softened a bit. I think it's going to get done pretty good. I think it's just a matter of when, not if.
I love the idea of a light-hearted contract negotiation of a Mercedes seat. How much? 30 million? Or 20? Oh, go on, 29. Light-hearted. Go on, 20. Oh, 28. I'll take it. Let's hear from Lewis. Not in the lead of the championship, but as Verstappen was saying, it's nip and tuck between these cars, between these drivers. We are in the midst of a fantastic season championship battle. 3 races won each, 7 races done. It couldn't be closer.
You guys, the team and yourself, you always give yourself a hard time after a good race or a bad race. What was the last couple of days like, and are you feeling confident ahead of this weekend?
It's not been hard in terms of like being too hard on ourselves. Of course, that's what we do that's why we're champions. But lots and lots of calls, lots of great communication. Been to the factory. I've been on phone with pretty much everyone. So it's just really, really great to see everyone amped. You know, no one's taking a day off. None of us are taking a day off. Not even me. So it's really just been staying on it. Me trying to compartmentalize, like doing the physical recovery and making sure I'm physically ready and mentally, whilst also making sure I've got all the bases covered with the guys. So I'm on topic when I arrive here. I'm not trying to catch up.
Well, that is pretty much it from here in Austria. We should, however, say it is the Großer Preis von Steiermark this weekend, not the Austrian Grand Prix. That's next weekend. But we're in the same place.
I wasn't sure if you were going to get through that at one point. There was a little bit of a pause, but you did it.
I made it.
Pro, as ever.
Predictions, because you got trounced last week.
This is the
Rosanna
most stressful
killed you.
point of the weekend for me. And to be clear, trounced, I was right with my prediction until 1.5 laps to go.
You keep saying this. I was 1.5 laps off.
Oh. Anyway,
still got it wrong.
I'm going to try and redeem myself.
Okay.
I'm going to say a Checo Perez victory.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say a Daniel Ricciardo on the podium.
Okay, that's really similar to me. I was going to say no.
Isn't it convenient?
No.
Yeah,
I'm going to say Max, Checo, Lando.
Okay. Oh, see, that now sounds more likely. But I'm sticking with my guns.
Stick with it.
Stick with my guns.
Stick with it. I'm not going to say anything about Gasly because apparently I jinxed him and AlphaTauri for the entire season until I didn't turn up and he got a podium.
Maybe you shouldn't turn up to more races for AlphaTauri then.
Charming. That's your lot, folks. Thanks for watching. See you next time.